This is the Ray Taylor Show.
Dave, Season 2, Episode 5, Bar Mitzvah, is the episode of the show Dave that I'm going to be spoiling, I'm going to be breaking down, I'm going to be talking about every little bit of this episode. So, if you don't want to be spoiled, if you haven't seen the show, I invite you to move on along to another episode of the Ray Taylor Show, because I am going to spoil this show right now. Starting off this episode, we are at Dave's mansion, where his studio has gotten him this giant place to record, write, produce his new album, and they're out on the patio, and it's Gata. Song is playing. We have Gata, we got Els, we got Dave. Gata is trying to show off his new song, Checkup, to Els, who is the producer for Dave, who has been going on tour with Trippie Redd. Only been in one episode, I believe. He was in one episode a few episodes ago. I think it was Antsy, where he showed up and he was back in town, had a little party. Looks like he's back in town for a little bit again. And, you know, Gata, as always, trying to promote himself, trying to do the same thing that Dave's trying to do, trying to make his dreams of becoming a rap star a reality. And he's trying to see what Els thinks, because he has a lot of respect for Els. He also calls Els the hardest working man in hip-hop, which Dave gets a little bit offended by. You also have Mike comes in and comes out to where they are all hanging out and goes over the fact that they're hired to do a bar mitzvah, and he's organizing the sound check that's going to happen. Gata doesn't need to be there, but Els and Dave need to be there. Because it's a good gig, and they're paying like multiples over Dave's rate, and Dave needs the money. Obviously, at least needs to get something going on, because he's not writing the album. I mean, very little work has been done, as far as we know, on this album that he's supposed to be creating. And Dave is going off on the memories, the old times with him and Els, how they used to go to bar mitzvahs all the time. They would always get kicked out because they were doing stuff that they weren't supposed to do as kids generally do. They were the troublemakers back in the day, and Dave is reminiscing about those old memories, including a bomb threat that they once called in on a bar mitzvah to get kicked out. But Els has to leave, so now it's just Dave and Gata out on the patio, and Gata asks Dave for money, which is a little awkward. You know, Gata is the hype man for Dave, but there's no shows going on. The album's not even recorded. Like, there's nothing for Gata to do to make any money right now. So he's asking for some money. They mildly talk about a number. But Dave asked for them to talk about it another time when he's not high, which Gata, as positive and welcoming and as always, says that that's cool. And then Dave throws out, "I am Queens Boulevard," which is clearly a reference from Entourage. Dave is even, like, Gata has no idea what it is. He laughs at it, not knowing what the reference is, and Dave is questioning that he does even know what Entourage is. Is like that even a thing in black culture? Which I thought was funny, because Dave, the show, at least this season, is very similar in some ways to Entourage, kind of. It's a group of people, one of which is the star, you know, Vinny Chase. Dave is the Vinny Chase, kind of, and Gata is almost like the brother. Drama in some ways, and then everybody else is kind of like Entourage. You know, Mike is like I forget the names of the people in Entourage, but there are similarities. I would say that, you know, instead of acting, they're doing the hip hop thing. But I would say that this show is far better quality than Entourage, despite the fact that Entourage is one of those kind of guilty pleasure type of shows. It's a show that I go back to, and it's like, it's amazing how, like, just the political correctness of the show, it does not hold up whatsoever. Not that it did, I'm sure, when it came out, but when it came out, I was like in my 20s, and when a dude's in their 20s, it's very different type of person than the person you are when you hit 40. So the show Entourage has different meaning, but every once in a while I dip back into it and watch it because it's like wish fulfillment type of it's crazy. Like it's probably the most garbage TV that I still watch, or that I will return to watch, that just is complete garbage. It is, like, despite the fact that I know it's complete garbage, not even like even more garbage than a lot of reality TV shows. But Gata didn't get the reference, but I laughed at it because, I can't help but enjoy the Entourage comparisons. So now cut to Dave is over at Allie and Emma's place. They're all sitting around the coffee table making snowflakes, which is kind of funny. I mean, funny for it's Christmas time in LA, obviously, which nothing really signifies that it's Christmas time in LA in any way except for if there's decorations up. So they're making snowflakes. Later on in this episode, we see some Christmas lights. But everything else and you see people like wearing jackets, anything more than a t-shirt, it's probably around winter time in LA. But, still looks bright and sunny. It could be any day of the year, really, in LA, because most of the days look exactly the same. But the decorations makes this more of a Christmas episode, I guess you could say. So they're all sitting around the coffee table. Dave's still reminiscing about childhood stories, about times where he sat on a sprinkler and felt the water shoot through his body, trying not to get hard, and just all of the really disgusting things that boys do as children, which is true, which is definitely something that women don't, unless you like grew up with a lot of brothers or, grew up around a lot of dudes. There's definitely women that have probably partaken in some of the debauchery of young boys. But Emma and Allie do not at all believe that it is as common as Dave would lead them to believe, that young boys would be doing such disgusting things. Not only sitting on a sprinkler, but also licking a hamster's pussy, which is just disgusting. And I think as children, right, there are a few kids that will do the thing that other people would dare them to do. And we already saw Dave as a kid in the episode, the talent show episode, where he was that guy, where his group of friends would push him into doing stunts to entertain them. He was the joke to them. He was their own little personal Johnny Knoxville to be a jackass for their own entertainment. And Dave is reminiscing about those times, kind of going back, regressing in some ways back to the Dave before he killed his younger self in that episode. But he's reminiscing about those times. They're not buying it. Cut to Mike and Els, or Mike and Dave are walking into the house of the family that is hiring him for the bar mitzvah to do the sound check. As they're walking in, Mike is telling Dave that Els wants producer credit for all of the tracks that he helped produce, and Dave is not happy with that. He doesn't think that Els deserves it. But Els' manager contacted Mike, so now Mike is running it by Dave, which I'm sure Dave probably doesn't like the fact that it was communicated in that way, more so than, like, I'm sure if Els had come to Dave man to man and asked for it, it would have been received quite a bit different than how it would have been received having his people go through Dave's people. So he's not happy. Dave's already in a mood. They go to the back of the house. Great, big, giant house. They go to the backyard where everything is still being set up. The tables are being set up. And Els is there in front of his turntables. Not happy with the situation. They got like poor, like low quality equipment. The way it's set up isn't working for him, but Els really doesn't care. Like, this is so beneath what Els has come accustomed to with live performances after going on tour with a major artist, hip-hop artist, that doing a bar mitzvah is like amateur hour for him, and he doesn't really care. And just lets Dave take over the sound check on his own, since Dave clearly doesn't think that Els does much. Like, there is a lack of respect that Dave has for the work that Els does, and doesn't think, not saying it out loud, but definitely in his passive-aggressive way, just thinking, just not really giving much respect to the work Els does. And, of course, part of the issue is that there's a blind keyboardist who memorized the space, so they don't want to move the keyboard to give more room, and Els is just like, whatever. So he just grabs a basketball, and there's a basketball court in the back of the yard. Full basketball court, by the way. Gorgeous. Would have loved to have at least a half-court legit basketball court instead of like a driveway basketball court, which I grew up with. But Els is like just done. It's like, I'm going to go shoot some hoops. Dave is doing the sound check, basically just talking shit into the mic, trying to get, also kind of attempting to see if Els can hear him from the back of the area, back of the space, the back of the backyard. But Els is just completely over it, completely. And Dave is pissed, so Dave goes back, and they play one-on-one. And it's a war going on. There's two vastly different energies going on at this house, right? You have Els and Dave in a war of one-on-one basketball, which is great. I mean, makes me want to go start playing basketball again. But they are playing one-on-one, like, just all out. I mean, that's one thing about basketball, is that you can get your frustrations out. You can play hard, and they're playing hard. And then the complete opposite end of that spectrum is Mike inside the house with the dad of the kid that's getting this bar mitzvah. And Mike, I don't know if it's daddy issues that Mike has, but Mike is, like, enthralled with this guy. And there's this love fest, so much so that Mike, like, invents this kid, the 6-year-old kid that he has, in order to relate to this dad more, which is funny. It's just kind of like, it's almost also how desperate Mike is for, like, human connection. Like, ever since he became Dave's manager, like, his like position in the group is very, like, just very by the books business wise. There is, like, the friendship is like pretty much non-existent in a lot of ways. So I'm sure he's, like, just thirsty for just any kind of, like, back and forth camaraderie with anybody. So he's trying to get that from this dad, even, making up the kid, having this love fest, having them bond over this, like, how hard it is for kids when they're growing up as a parent and all this kind of stuff. Then cut back to the basketball game, and Els wins, and he's like, give me some credit on that. Like, you can give me some credit on that. And, of course, Dave bringing it back to the credit that they haven't even talked about yet, but this is how Dave brings it up. It's like, well, why don't you have your manager contact Mike so I can give you some credit on that? Clearly talking shit about the fact that Els didn't just approach him man to man and had to go through their managers to ask for this credit, which is kind of a ridiculous credit. I don't know exactly how hip-hop credits go, but I know producers in hip-hop, depending on who they are, demand a high level of promotion and credit for the music that they work on. But L's firing back at Dave that he's not a good artist. He's a shitty artist. He's just a bum. And on some level, I mean, it's not true, but also Dave is unproven, basically, is in a lot of ways what L's point is like, you're talking all this shit as if you're some superstar already. But L's has worked with the real deal. He knows the work that goes into being a successful musician, being a successful artist, being a successful hip-hop artist. And Dave is like pretending to be that, but still at the very first steps of the starting line. So, you know, you can it's easy to talk shit about somebody, especially like when you have experience and somebody that clearly doesn't have experience is pretending. It's like that fake it till you make it thing doesn't necessarily work around people that have made it. Like, they are the first to see through your bullshit. Like, you may trick everybody else. You may be tricking this kid that is dying for Dave, Little Dicky, to perform at his bar mitzvah, but you're not tricking somebody who's actually in the business, who actually has experience. And he threw it right back at Dave's face in a very similar way to what we saw in the last episode when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar says he was nothing. You are not. I think was his words. You are not. You are not everything you think you are. You are not. And just another chip to hit Dave's ego, slowly realizing that he is not. And that people that are close to him, that have known him his entire life, are letting him know that he is not. More so than just an idol like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Cut to now, Gaeta is at the end of a date. He's walking his date home, walking her to her door at her apartment complex, saying goodbye, saying goodnight, and he's gotta get ready for the tomorrow's show or whatever, the bar mitzvah. So they say good night, and he goes and he sees that his car is missing, got towed. Goes back to the apartment door where it's got one of those intercom things, and he's trying to scroll through all the names, and of course he doesn't remember what her last name was, so he's not able to contact her to get her to buzz him in and give him a ride. So he's locked out basically, and reaches for his phone, and of course his phone is dead. So now it's Gaeta, it's at night, and he's just hoofing it. He's just walking because he needs to find a charger. On his walk, he walks by a gas station, buys a charger, tries to ask the attendant to see if he can just charge his phone inside the little booth. Denied. So then Gaeta tries to pay this homeless guy to move out of the way so he could try and use the electrical outlet that the ATM machine is plugged into outside of the gas station. And while attempting to do that, is denied, is told to go away by the gas station attendant. Then there's a couple, this white couple that pulled up to the gas station in an SUV, and Gaeta's like asking them, it's like, can I please just charge my phone in your car real quick? They say no. This white guy that's got the high and tight military cut, obviously racist, locks his door, boop, boop, boop. Right, to make sure Gaeta doesn't get in and like use their charger, use the electricity in their precious SUV. So he's denied. So he moves on. Walks by a bakery that's just starting to get ready for the day, but still not open yet. Because of course bakeries they start super early. You know, you got to get those donuts fresh and ready to go for when everybody's on their way to work. So the bakery always getting prepared, but still not open yet and not able to help Gaeta. So no help here. Keep on moving. Then he walks by this house. It's got a gate in front of it, giant fence in front of it. House has got the Christmas lights hooked up, so another sign that it's Christmas time in L.A. in Hollywood. And Gaeta decides to hop the fence, and this whole time it's like stressful. It's like, I don't know what parts of L.A. he's walking. I mean, it's just like walking around at night in a city is sketchy because you don't know who you're going to run into, what kind of desperate people are out trying to do desperate things. And then also Gaeta being black and it being in L.A., the LAPD, along with many police departments across the country, are murderers, and get away with murdering people of color. But I mean, they murder. I mean, not even like just adults. Like cops kill children and get away with it all of the time. So sometimes, I mean, you have like the fear of people who are desperate and roaming the streets of LA at night. But then I would say the biggest fear is that of the police department, who are terrorists and like to murder people, because there is really little to no. I mean, the worst. I mean, maybe you get accused, maybe you go to trial, but generally that stuff never sticks. A lot of the times they just go on a paid vacation after they kill somebody. So there's a lot of I have a lot of love for Gaeta, and I don't want anything bad to happen. So this is stressful, and also the score, very like ominous, just like a simple like bass kind of line to like score these scenes, which ratchets up the tension a bit. So he jumps over this fence, which is like, oh, my God. And, of course, right when he jumps over the fence, there's this car that kind of turns and goes past the house. So it's like, oh, hopefully they didn't see him, hop the fence. And then he goes to plug his phone in to where the Christmas lights are plugged in. And all of the Christmas lights go out while he's charging his phone. Kind of charges his phone really fast. But is able to make a call to see where his car's at. And I assume charge the phone enough to order an Uber or something to take him to this tow yard where his car is at. Because cut to, he gets out of a car. Somebody gave him a ride. I assume it's like an Uber or Lyft situation. And he's at the tow yard. But, of course, I mean, you can see the sun. The sky is just starting to light up. It's like just the beginning moments of sunrise. So Gaeta has been out all night trying to track down his car. Well, first trying to get his phone charged and then trying to track down his car. And it's still too early. The tow yard doesn't open up till 7 a.m. It's probably like 4 or 5 a.m. right before sunrise. So he just pops a squat right in front of the place and waits. And it's like a stressful scenes because you love Gaeta and you don't want anything bad to happen to Gaeta. Although on some level you have, I feel that Gaeta can handle himself far more than if it was, I mean, I guess if it Els, let's say, right? Els, so similar melanin content as Gaeta, but suburbs guy. He's not streetwise. He's not street smart, right? You could almost see like Dave or Mike having a situation, but because they're both white, they probably wouldn't run into the same types of trouble that Gaeta and Els would run into. And if it were Els out on the street instead of Gaeta, I would say it would be even more stressful of a scene. But Gaeta gets to the tow yard and is waiting for sunrise. Cut back to the bar mitzvah is going on. The kid is being raised up in the chair as happens in bar mitzvahs. I remember as a kid, I went to a bar mitzvah, and it was probably the most fun thing I ever had. It was so much fun. And I think it was the only. It's like one of the most fun parties I've ever been to, and I was a kid. And I'm not a big fun party guy. I'm not. I don't like a lot of people around. I wasn't even drinking because I was just, super young. I was probably like, I don't know what age you are at bar mitzvah, like 13, maybe 12. And I didn't know the kid. It was like a friend of a friend. I spent a lot of time at friends' houses, and this friend was going to a thing. So what happens is I go to those things. Because that's where I live. I spent a lot of time as a child living with other people, for the most part, like on weekends and summers. I didn't really, anyway. So that I remember that, and that they're mid bar mitzvah. You got Dave and Mike. Dave is telling he's got a part of their deal is that he has to do like this meet and greet thing with the kids. He's got to do at least 20 minutes, but Dave's like, oh, I'll give him 25 minutes. I mean, Dave in a lot of ways has been mentally preparing for the moment to hang out with these kids, more so than any other aspect of this gig. Is him constantly reminiscing of all these stories of him as a kid, which is perfect fodder for when you're going to sit down with all these young, impressionable minds. So while Dave is chit-chatting, destroying the minds of the youth, Mike is hanging out with the dad again, further bonding. Now Mike's like inventing a wife, inventing these charities, this charity that she works for that's like anti-racism, God, what was the other thing? I forget. It was like two things kind of twist together. Kind of funny, but also a scene that sets up the politics of the dad. Right, where Mike's like, oh, I'm super liberal. I'm almost so liberal I almost come around the other way. And the dad's like, Mike asks him, it's like, you're BLM, right? You're BLM. And the dad's like, yeah, okay. So you kind of know politically they're both on the liberal spectrum of things, which makes sense. And Mike is just trying to, and also like talking about stories about his fake kid. Like he's got like the backstory and everything all together. Meanwhile, Dave is like corrupting these kids' minds. Not only telling him all the things that he used to do as a kid, like shit on top of shit, like where you and your friends all take laxatives and you take turns shitting on top of their shit pile in the toilet, and taking Polaroid pictures of it and putting them up everywhere. And these kids are living knowing that they live in an era of social media, are very concerned and very aware of the quote-unquote cancel culture, which I would say cancel culture is way more of a reality for regular people in a school than it is for celebrities. Because every single celebrity I've seen get canceled is still doing exactly what they did before. There is zero difference in lifestyle, really. Maybe they lost out on a role here or there. Maybe they weren't in the they were taken out of a movie or whatever. But they're like, for a lot of the comedians who are quote unquote canceled, they're still signing deals. They're still touring the country. There's very little to nothing has actually happened as far as in the way of canceling. But as far as kids go, regular people, there's definitely much more cancel culture potential. And they are very aware of it, despite how Dave is trying to give them the out. It's like, you can get away with whatever when you're a kid. You're not fully formed. Like you're not an adult yet. You can't be charged with stuff. Really trying to be the bad influence on young kids, that type of a role model, which is just another way in which Dave is reminded how immature he is. Because, like, Dave is like, well, this ritual that you're doing with the bar mitzvah, it's, he's talking about how, the religious aspect of it is kind of ridiculous, but the whole thing is just you becoming a man, taking more responsibility, helping out, doing these things, starting your growing up. And then all the kids are like, well, we don't want to do that. We want to be like you. You never grew up. And Dave's like, oh yeah, I guess maybe I'm not a good role model because that is not what you should do. And it's just another way in which this show is telling Dave that, like, hey, maybe you should reflect on who you are and what you're doing to the people around you, because maybe you are acting like a child. And maybe it's not good that these kids, like, he's seeing his influence on these kids, and maybe having second thoughts. Cut to Els is on the phone with his manager talking about the whole producer credit ordeal and saying that it was just, he doesn't really care. It was more of a test to see how Dave would react to it, which clearly he got his answer of how Dave would react to it. Meanwhile, Dave, just having the conversation with the kids where he's reminded of, has the kind of realization of the immaturity that he's been displaying, is going to talk to Els because he wants to have a adult conversation about this thing. So he tracks Els down, and they go try to find a quiet place to have a conversation. They open the door to the garage, where Dave and Els, like, they open the door, and in the garage are all of the kids that Dave was just talking to. One of the kids is on his knees. Another kid has, like, a bag over his head with his shirt off, while it's like he has the fat kid and he's holding his man titties. And it's just a wild scene that really only provides giant question marks as to what the kids were doing. It is not clear at all what the kids were doing, but you know it wasn't good. And after seeing that momentarily, Dave and Els are traumatized. And cut to now they're at the bar, just staring out into the distance, not really sure how to contemplate what they just saw, not sure if or what they should do. So they talk to the parents, slowly sipping on their drinks. Then all of a sudden the dad comes busting out of the house, obviously phone in hand. He knows what happened. He's not happy. He's angry at Dave, and he shows him the phone, and Dave's like, why did you post it on TikTok? It's like Dave is angry that they went so public with it, which is far different than just taking Polaroids and sticking it up everywhere. So Dave is, like, you know, trying to, I don't know, he's kind of, like, upset at where these things are going. The dad's super pissed. Els is like, dad's like trying to fire him, and Els is like, no, you have a contract with us. You need to pay us for the contract. And then the dad turns into not so liberal, telling Dave to control his posse, as if Els isn't the most famous person in that crew at the time, but clearly just because Els is black, feeling very comfortable downgrading him to posse, which doesn't make Els feel happy, doesn't make Dave feel happy. And Mike hears that, and Mike, after clearly going over the politics of this guy that he's been schmoozing with and in love with, having this love fest, is now, like, seeing a new side of this dad. And then the dad yells at the kid, and Mike, probably in some ways internalizing a dad yelling at a kid as maybe how Mike's character's dad would yell at him, steps in to defend the kid. But cut to Dave and Mike walking out, getting kicked out again, laughing. They're bonded. I mean, after seeing what they saw and then just being kicked out of this bar mitzvah again, reminding them of the good old days of what it was like when they were kids getting kicked out of bar mitzvahs. Dave, or Mike, I think, has the idea to let they had like a petting zoo kind of a situation out in the front yard. So he decides to open up the gate and let all the animals out, like the llamas and sheep and all the different animals they had, this petting zoo, you know, causing even more trouble. It's like, might as well. It's already gone to shit. Let's have some good old fun and let all these animals out. then Gaeta pulls up. Finally, Gaeta pulls up. He got his car. You see him pull around the corner. You have, from Gaeta's point of view, as he's pulling up, he's seeing all these farm animals running around. He's like, what is going on in this place? And gets out of his car, texts Dave, but, you know, Dave isn't there. The kid that's having the bar mitzvah is running out to try and get Dave, and is upset because his dad kicked Dave out. But then he sees Gaeta, and he's like, oh, Gaeta, I know you too. I know all your songs. So Gaeta, taking the moment, as Gaeta does, and makes the best of it, decides to give them and the kid whose birthday it is, as well as all of his friends, a little show out on the street, gets up on his car, and performs the same song that we opened the show with, this episode with, Check Up. And it's great. It feels good because Gaeta was there, seized an opportunity to do his own performance outside of Dave, makes it a happy ending for not only Gaeta but for this kid whose bar mitzvah was ruined by his dad. Well, also ruined by his poor choice in activities and how to display those for the whole world to see, but a good end nonetheless. And that was the episode of Dave, episode 5, Bar Mitzvah. Next week, I'll be talking about episode 6, Somebody Date Me, and I will break that one down. But this was a fun episode. You know, you got to see, at least Els hasn't been a big aspect of this show this season. This only being his second thing, but it reminded the audience, it showed the audience what it is to be in a long-term friendship. I mean, when you're friends for a long time, you're going to have those moments where you're playing super hard one-on-one against each other. You're getting out that aggression on the court, but then, you know, also able to flip it on a switch and be good old friends like nothing has ever happened. And it kind of left that friendship in a good place, I think. But that is the end of episode 5 of Dave, season 2. And I will do season 2, episode 6, Somebody Date Me, next week.
This is the regular show.
Swipe up. This is the show where I share my opinions on current events. This is the 184th episode of the show that just makes trolls cry. Makes them want to get on my comment section and tell me how wrong I am. But let's get it started, shall we, with this list. I mean, with the first story that's probably going to get me called names. Very specific names that aren't very nice to call me. But let's start off with this first story. Florida Republicans are trying to punish Disney after it opposes the Don't Say Gay bill. Obviously, this has been going on for a while. DeSantis is now removing, I think it passed by the time, I don't think by the time this post came out, but by the time I'm recording this, I believe in Florida they passed the bill or whatever that removes Disney's ability to self-govern their theme parks, which is insane that Disney was ever given that ability to begin with. Giving any company the ability to self-govern in any way is horrible. It does no good for people. But what removing this thing does is it's apparently going to raise the taxes for all the people who live in that area by quite a bit, and they are reframing the reasoning for doing this as a way to promote a free market. It's weird how there's only like a handful of things that Republicans and right-wing conservatives use as ways to justify their actions, right? It's the free and open market. It is protecting children, family values, Christian values, They use all of these things in order to remove the rights and freedoms for a wide swath of people. If you are not a straight white person, the freedoms afforded to you are far less because of how they choose to frame all of their laws in a lot of these states. And it's funny, I am not a fan of Disney. So best case scenario for me is that Disney and Florida kill each other. They just fight to the death and neither of them survive. Maybe Netflix buys up the Marvel properties for pennies. And we get to see some interesting rated R movies from the Marvel universe. Maybe what it was, Star Wars gets picked up by like Amazon or something like that, and we actually get to see some interesting Star Wars movies instead of just regurgitated garbage that most Star Wars movies are. I would be good with that. Pixar spins off into its own thing. It doesn't need to associate itself with Disney any longer. I'm not a big fan of Disney. It's actually a bummer that Florida has gone anti-Disney because all of it kind of overshadows the real bad things that Disney is actually doing, like stealing from artists, like not paying their actors appropriately, screwing them over, just buying up all kinds of intellectual property to where we're really not going to see edgy movies in any of these properties because they're all owned by Disney. We're going to see just things getting price gouged left and right because Disney really only cares about money. There's a lot of reasons not to like Disney, and you don't have to make up the fact that they are groomers to do so. You don't have to make up situations. It's all they have is to make up the fact that Disney is involved with grooming kids, because they are such a conservative company. Like, you want to talk about a production company that makes movies that has little representation. I mean, only recently has Disney put out movies that feature people that aren't like white. I mean, I guess like Aladdin a little bit, but most of everything in Disney has been whitewashed. And no movies are led by a person that is non-straight. Like, there are no queer or gay stars in any of these movies. They are not telling stories that are anything other than the straight story of heterosexual love. So I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, they just make stuff up anyway. I mean, that's just kind of the go-to game plan for conservatives, to just fabricate reasons to hate something, really, in order to just like take away rights. But I would love for Disney and Florida to just kill each other, because I don't care about Florida and really don't care about Disney. I don't think I'm not one of. It's like, and it's weird the fact that the kind of fandom that Disney has is not much different than the fandom that the whole MAGA Trumper type of thing is. I mean, they love their merchandise. They are very loyal. I mean, they have so many similarities. It is really disgusting on both levels, in my opinion. But anyway, moving on. Meta is racing to release its first pair of augmented reality glasses in 2024. This is going to be a technology that not only Meta is racing to release, but Apple, guaranteed Apple is. Microsoft has been working on it for a while now. I'm sure Google, with Google Glasses, is working on it. I mean, Apple's been in the wearable tech game longer than most. And it's sad that Mark Zuckerberg he says he wants to have like an iPhone moment, which when Steve Jobs announced the iPhone, leading up to that, he wasn't like, I want to have a light bulb moment. He didn't say that was the one crazy thing about Apple, is that they are very secretive about the things that they're going to release. Not that Apple invented the touchscreen phone, but they perfected it in a way that everybody else mimicked. I mean, all smartphones come from that original iPhone. No company did it the right way until Apple did it the right way. And to think that Facebook is going to be the company that does it the right way is laughable, is very laughable. But as far as the technology, I'm stoked for that. I would much rather have augmented reality glasses than virtual reality glasses. I would rather be wearing glasses that, one, will probably fix my vision, but also, you know, augmented reality give you like a heads-up display on things. I can have like a movie playing over here. I could have my computer screen over here just floating in midair, and not have to own TVs, not have to own monitors, you know, put little earbuds, Bluetooth earbuds, or have the bone conduction, whatever that technology is for the speakers. But I'm all for that. I mean, it's just a matter of time before that technology not only comes out, but gets to a point where it's just like a contact lens. Or if it's Elon Musk's technology where he puts a chip in you, you know, the whole matrixy kind of a deal, the implant, that will change as well. I mean, if you could have a chip implanted, then you can have augmented vision just by way of that interface. So it'll be interesting to see in this race of all of these tech companies racing to a very similar destination, to see which one comes out on top, which one comes out first and best. And I'm not going to hold my breath that Meta is the company to do it. But, you know, it's good for Mark Zuckerberg to, like, call his shot, I guess. And that's the thing. Steve Jobs never had to call his shot. He just did it. And he kept it a secret, and he did the perfect announcements, the way that Apple, like the Apple events when they announced new products, was a must-watch event for any tech person. I would get emotional watching those, watching them announce, like when they announced the iPhone, I was like, holy shit. I think that's when I bought my first Mac. I got a Mac Pro because I was doing a lot of web design. I was doing a lot of graphic design, and kind of started very short after that, started doing podcasting. But yeah, it's interesting that Zuckerberg thinks he's going to be the first. I don't know. Just because he's definitely the most vocal about it, but 1,000%. Obviously, you have Microsoft with the HoloLens. That's been for years. They've been trying to do that. Google Glasses, same type of deal. And you know Apple's working on it. They just don't talk about stuff that they're working on. They just release stuff when they release stuff, and they like the surprise element of it. And out of all of the technology companies that make hardware, Apple is still like the dominant force. Nobody's, I mean, aside from like the Android operating system, which is, you know, open source, so that's why you see it on a lot of hardware. You know, Google's not making hardware. Microsoft has a hit or miss. I mean, the Xbox is the best hardware Microsoft has ever made. Their MP3 players were garbage. Their phones were garbage. The only thing Microsoft hardware-wise that's been successful is their Xbox line of products. So, and then with Facebook or Meta, they bought Oculus. So that's the hardware that they're making. But VR and AR are different. So I'm sure it's probably the Oculus team that's working on this augmented reality glasses, but you know, they've got a lot of competition. And it's, I don't know. I think Zuckerberg saying it, he's hoping that helps to increase stock prices, I'm sure. He's trying to get people to think that he is on the cusp of the bleeding edge of technology, when the reality is, if you follow tech in any way or have ever followed tech, like it's not, I mean, you're making, it's 2 years before you plan on releasing it, It's like, okay, it's not like an announcement that you're hopeful for an announcement is not. It's pretty weak sauce, in my opinion. So I am excited for the technology of augmented reality, but not if I were putting bets on a tech company to come out with the successful version, I would say that Apple would probably be the one I would put my money on. Definitely would make way more sense on a variety. I mean, from a hardware quality standpoint, user interface generally, I mean, I prefer their operating system to Windows. I prefer it to Google. Not that everything that they make is great, but, you know, I would say, and as far as like having loyalty, brand loyalty, Apple's got solid brand loyalty and they make solid stuff. And even with their new release of like the Studio, like they're basically their Mac Mini on steroids, like the direction they're going in is, I think, very stable, I would say. With their Apple Watches and everything, it seems like they're still putting out high quality everything, their phones, all of that stuff. So I would put my money on Apple being the first out of the gate. Maybe not with the best. You know, there probably companies will come out with better functioning, you know, glasses or whatever, but Apple's going to have it's going to have the sweet spot, I think. Anyway, moving on. That's just my assumption, my predictions for the technology. Moving on, Netflix seems like it's finally cracking down. It will finally be cracking down on password sharing. Their numbers, they're down 200,000 subscribers in their, I think, the first quarter of the year. And they are testing out a lot of things to try and keep people from sharing passwords. They're like doing trial versions in different countries to see what works. And it's something that they want to, again, similarly to Meta and their augmented reality, they have a 2-year kind of a window when they plan on implementing more of these changes. But I would say, if I had to guess, again, putting on my little hypothesis hat of technology, why Netflix is having problems isn't because the password sharing. Yes, that's been going on forever, but it's not, it's guaranteed. I mean, if you do crack down on this, I think it's just going to lead to less people having Netflix because the price of Netflix keeps going up despite the fact that nothing's really changed. They do a lot of original content, but I think part of it is Netflix has had a lot of public scrutiny over the past few years with people that they've done business with, similarly like Dave Chappelle. His most recent specials have had a lot of criticism for his transphobic focus, which is sad to see. A comic that I used to consider to be the best comic working. He's turned into so many comics that have just dug their heels in the sand and are just slowly turning into conservatives. Similarly to Joe Rogan, who he's buddies with, they're progressively more and more becoming more and more conservative, and they're rich, they're out of touch. There was a big uproar with that, and Netflix stood behind their artists, which on some level I appreciate that, you know, Netflix is backing their artists. They're not going to, but then there's also culturally, because of that, there's going to be repercussions, and I think probably a lot of people canceled their subscriptions. There's going to be a percentage of people that canceled their Netflix subscriptions because of that, because of they're done with that. Similarly to how I canceled, I stopped being a UFC fan completely because Disney raised the pay-per-view prices twice, actually I think 3 times during the pandemic. And it just became way too expensive. I mean, it's what Disney does, is they overcharge for everything. And I just got to a point where I no longer wanted to give Disney my money. And for that, I'm no longer a fan of any sport now. I'm not a fan of any sport. And I'm not excited for any Disney movie that comes out. So there's going to be a percentage of people that canceled Netflix because of the Chappelle thing or vice versa. I mean, people could, but also they don't get a lot of great movies. There's more competition now than ever for Netflix. I mean, you compare Netflix to HBO Max. HBO Max not only is putting out solid original content, but also great movies. Like movies that were in theaters not that long ago, like The Batman, are offered up available on HBO, and you're not really getting those same kinds of movies, and also great classic movies that you just don't necessarily get on Netflix. There are some here and there, but it doesn't seem to be at the quality that some of the other streaming services are at. And especially for the price that you have to pay for Netflix. I mean, most other streaming services cost less than Netflix. So I would assume that the price increase, the lack of quality content, the political sides that Netflix is taking, all of those things I think are contributing to the fact that Netflix is down 200,000 subscribers to what they projected. Which also, it's like, you're going to plateau at some point. You're going to get, like, there's only so many people are going to sign up. And then you have to change to, like, appease the shareholders. Because you can't get more subscribers, then you have to find other ways to increase profit. So you do that by increasing the subscription price. You do that by cracking down on who's logging in with a password that's not localized. Which will be interesting how they handle that. Because it's like, what if you have two homes and you have a Netflix password in LA, but then you have another house out in Oregon, and you go to Oregon and you have to have a separate Netflix account because you live in two houses, because they're going to crack down and because you're not in the same location. Like, I think it's going to cause a lot more problems than it is benefit, and it's a short-sighted benefit too. Because whenever they implement it, there's going to be a big jump in whoever decides to go with Netflix. But then overall, some of those people are going to go away, or they're going to find other ways to get around it. And in the long run, I think they're screwing themselves. But it's interesting. Maybe they'll get bought up by somebody. That happens all the time. I don't know who would buy Netflix, but probably Disney. I could see Disney buying Netflix just because Disney buys everything. But anyway, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, it's a 2-year thing. Like, by the time augmented reality is supposed to be coming out for Meta is the same time that Netflix is going to be cracking down on passwords. So we'll see if either of those actually hit the mark. But moving on to our final story, hospitals are turning to robots to help with nursing burnout. There's a hospital out in Virginia, Fredericksburg, Virginia, that started implementing. They added 2 robots to their nursing crew to help transport different things around the hospital. And it says it's freed up 600 hours of time, which has helped the nurses avoid burnout, which is good, but is also a very convenient way to start replacing people with robots, saying that they are helping the people. Oh, we're freeing, instead of hiring more nurses, we're going to start investing in robots. We're going to be the pilot program to where eventually most nurses will not be people. Eventually, nurses will be replaced with robots, and the way they're selling it is that we're helping the nurses avoid burnout. This is just one more example of robots taking over, which is going to happen. All driving jobs are going to be gone. Delivery jobs are going to be gone. Jobs like nursing is going to be gone. A lot of doctor surgeries, manufacturing is already primarily robots. A lot of jobs that used to be held by human beings are going to be robots within the next 10 years. Easily within the next 10 years. And they're all going to be sold to the public with this idea that they're helping. Meanwhile, that they're eliminating jobs, and at the same time, some states, some cities are making it illegal to be poor. Like, it's illegal. I forget which state it was that recently passed a thing that made it illegal to be homeless. And it's just, you know, some state that wants to fill up private prisons. It's going to be, I mean, prison growth in this country, private prison growth. Mark my words, Mark Zuckerberg is trying to predict when his augmented reality is going to be this iPhone moment. I am going to predict that the biggest growth in this company, aside from robots, aside from augmented reality, is going to be private prisons, and how many are going to be built, how many are going to be filled with all the people that can't afford to live anywhere because minimum wage is still $7.25 or $7 whatever it is. It's impossible to live on minimum wage in this country. It's impossible to live in, I mean, even double minimum wage. It's almost impossible to live. Like, it's ridiculous. The world that we have built for ourselves in this country, the world that capitalism has created for us to exist in, is going to be one in which there are just people who are unable to make ends meet are going to be filling private prisons. That is my prediction. And it's going to be sold in this manner where robots... There's a great short film that's on HBO Max, and I'm blanking on the name. But it's a great short film, like sci-fi short film, near future, where it's like this kid walking down the street and a drone, you know, quadcopter comes down, and it's a police quadcopter, and it says he's arrested. And he's like constantly asking, what did he get arrested for? He doesn't know what he did. He's never, you know, properly charged. He gets taken to a prison. Like, he at no point he's the only actor really in this whole short film. He goes to this prison. Everything's automated. There's a screen that pops up that like tells them like, oh, you can hire a lawyer, or you can get a public defender. And it's like, if you get a public defender, you're going to be here for 10 years. If you have $1 million, you can hire this private lawyer. It's a crazy, and it's like he was never told, like it was all a mistake that he was in there to begin with, but everything's automated, so there's nobody. It's like trying to contact customer service when something doesn't work. That's how our legal system, potentially, according to this short film, is going to be. And I could see that, everything being automated, because it's humans, you have to pay humans. But you don't have to pay robots. You just have to maintain them. You don't have to pay automated systems. You just have to get them pay to get them created. But once they're there, it's way cheaper than actually paying people to live. So anyway, I mean, on the short term, I'm glad that in this hospital, nurses are avoiding burnout. But if they don't know that they are just the beta test for eventually eliminating humans from the nursing profession and replacing humans with robots, then, you know, only like high-end hospitals will have a, you know, personal, like an actual human there for like nostalgia purposes, and all they do is like hold your hand or whatever. They don't really do much. They're just there as a human presence. But anyway, that's it. Let me do some shout-outs and get out of here. Shout-out to BuzzFeed News. Shout-out to Verge. Shout-out to Slash Film. Shout-out to Wired. But most importantly, shout-out to you.
This is the Ray Dayz Show.
Rayz Dayz, episode 107. This is the show where I recap my week. And last week I was having a great week. Maybe a little bit of anger coming out, resentment coming out in the last episode, but I had a great week, and I had a feeling that I should probably prepare for a downswing in my attitude, because I was feeling like maybe I'm a little manic right now. And I don't know. I've never been diagnosed, and I don't think I'm very extreme. If I am, have like a manic depression, bipolar, whatever, I would love to have money so I could, pay rent and actually go to doctors and get new glasses and get my teeth worked on and maybe even go to therapy and work on all of my problems that I have. But I definitely have realized, especially the last couple years, but the last 10 years overall, I haven't been in any relationships really. And I've been trying to, for almost 10 years, been trying to figure out how to make a living not working for a company. Trying to figure out how to make a living from the things I love to do, like doing the show, hopefully one day getting sponsors for this show. If there's a dentist out there that wants to sponsor me, do some dental work, I'll promote your place we'll work out the length of sponsorship, all that kind of stuff. That would be awesome. Of course, my artwork and all of the merch and things that I'm selling in conjunction with that, the prints, the T-shirts, all of that stuff. There's a lot of potential for me to make money and survive. I'm just not good at something. I am missing an ingredient. I'm missing an element somewhere, and I'm trying to figure that out. But one thing I've noticed is just how I am and how I react to things, and understanding the type of person I am, and understanding that it's okay to be the type of person I am, to be like the antisocial guy. Like it's my entire life, it has been looked down upon like a mental disease that I like being alone. I'm an only child. I got used to being alone early. And then I spent a lot of time at friends' houses, for summers, on vacations. I've been away. I've never really had that feeling of like having like that family connection type of a thing. So in that aloneness, I am very comfortable. And I'm an introvert. There's a reason why I podcast and I make paintings and I watch movies. None of those are social activities, unless you're doing a podcast that does interviews, and whatever. There's a lot of different styles of podcasts out there. But what I'm doing, my life right now, is literally the life I want to live. If I could just figure out how to make more money doing that and actually survive doing that. That is the element that I'm working on. But I realize that I am that person. I am very introverted. I love watching movies where it's just me focusing on the movie. I enjoy painting where I can just block everything out. I enjoy those things. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with the fact that I've dealt with, I know I've dealt with depression. I know I've definitely dealt with anxiety, panic attacks, all of those things. I understand I have issues, probably PTSD. I know there's a lot of stuff. Again, if I could afford help, I would get help. But I'm also come from a generation, and I also was raised. I never went to the doctor. I'm a man. I'm not supposed to ask for help. I'm supposed to have all of the answers. If I'm having a bad time, I need to shut up, suck it up, and deal with it. That's like the generation I grew up. That's what I was told how I'm supposed to be for the majority of my life, up until the past few years, 10, 20 years or so, with the internet and people understanding that there's an infinite amount of ways to experience this reality that we're living, that a lot of people are dealing with trauma, a lot of people are having issues, a lot of people have problems opening up, a lot of people have these things, and there's just a lot of different types of people. And that it's okay to be a different type of person. But I have realized that when that pendulum for me goes up, there's an inevitable downswing. And it's painful. It's so painful. Like I've had the opposite version of that, where it's like things are going bad and then out of nowhere, or even things are going okay, and out of nowhere something amazing happens. Something great happens. Like I've experienced those moments in life. And I'm hoping for more of the. I'm banking on the fact that somehow those are going to happen again for me. But also that it happens in the negative way, and it's so much more noticeable, and because it's so painful. Good. It's amazing when a good thing happens, but it's like that opposite end of that swing, that pendulum swing, is rough. And I kind of called it. I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but it's definitely something that I thought of, where it's like things are going really well. Like it's very rare that I've had that kind of positive outlook on with zero proof. I'm not like nobody seems to care about the shirts yet. Nobody like the prints, and it's like how to promote those things. There's a lot of things. There's an element there. There's parts I'm missing, and sometimes it happens a lot where I'll do like a big project. There's this big thing I get obsessed with. I go nonstop on, burn myself out, which is something when I talked about the personality test that I took a few weeks ago. I mean, I know that in me. I know that I will get lost in a thing that I need to get done or I want to get done, to the point where I know how to push myself. I have spent my life testing myself and pushing myself in so many situations just to survive. So when there's something I want to get done, like it's going to be a positive outcome, I get that, but it's I push myself just as hard as if it's like a life or death thing. So I got all these updates done. I figured out how I want to structure what I'm going to do when it comes to picking artwork, turning it into shirts and prints and NFTs, and going through my entire I know the steps that I want to do, but the big project, the big infrastructure that I did to set up, that I was, so just pushing myself to do, made me feel like the feeling you get when you complete something is amazing. It's the reason why I paint, even though I'm highly critical of everything I do. That's the thing. All of my haters, nobody has talked shit about me and my work more than me. I am way better at talking shit about myself and my work than you will ever be. So when people try and talk shit, it's hack. It's so sad. It is so pathetic, the laziness and lack of creativity that comes with the shit talking that I get. It is just, it reminds me of they're just no different than the children I went to school with in middle school who are trying to be mean. It has that that level of ability to talk shit. It's laughable. I am way better. One, I know myself. I know myself better than anybody. And most people have no fucking idea about me. Right? They think they know me. I am guarded as fuck. So when they try and talk shit, it's hilarious. I'm way better at it. And I know that when I finish a thing, it gives me like this joy. There is like, I mean, you know, you work a job where it sucks. And like I worked in at Costco in sales. I sold electronics. If I sold hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of electronics in one day, like my joy at the end of the day is no different than if I don't sell anything. Like there is nothing I can look back on from my day of work and be like, oh, there is the work I did. It's not like I built something. It's not like I made something. It's not like I make more money selling more products for a company that doesn't give a shit about me selling products for them. There's like no difference whether I make $1 million for the company or cost it whatever my pay was for that day. But then when you like do anything that like there's something to show for your day, you can have that pride in, I did that thing. I was part of that thing. Like if you do roofs on houses, like there you take pride in the work you do. You know, if it's a job that you do day in and day out, then you can't help but just like take pride in the work you do and want to do a good quality job. Because people that don't take pride in the work that they do usually don't do those things for a long amount of time. Or they focus on kissing ass and then they move their way up that way. But for the people that like are like good people out in the world, the non-kiss assers, the people that ass kissers, the ones that take pride in their work and want to grow in their craft to get better, they enjoy the process of getting better at something. I don't know where I was going with that. Long road. So I know. So you have that. If you like getting good at something and you finish a project, there's a really good feeling you get. I get it. Painting, not as much because I don't spend as much time. Like the paintings I used to do like more surrealism, Salvador Dali kind of style. They would take a long time. And the feeling of accomplishment when that's finally done feels great. Now, what I do, producing the show, painting the 7 faces every week, getting better at the production, like there are a lot of things in my life that are giving me that drip of whatever that chemical is that you get when you accomplish something. I'm doing that in like little bits, a steady stream. And I've noticed that levels me out a lot more than what it used to be, where like I would do a big project, there'd be this huge high, and then there's just this crash that happens. And that's kind of what I experienced this week. I experienced the crash this week. Because last week I was like, yes, everything's great, everything's falling into place. And it's like a lot of potential is falling into place. The only thing that would have kept me from the crash is if instantaneously sales were going like crazy, people were buying all my art. Like if I'm bogged down with sales, then that would be the only way to maintain any kind of level of positivity. But like I expected, I got the crash. Monday, I felt sick Monday. And I think it's just allergies. It's starting to cool down and heat up. It's doing that oscillating thing out here in the desert, so it's a lot of pollen, a lot of allergies. And I woke up and I just felt like not good, which is something that, like, for me to get sick is I have so much I need to do. Like, I can't afford to get sick. It's like why I've been so not wanting to even take a chance of getting COVID, because like I can't afford, like I'm on a roll and I don't need to. I need to keep the consistency going, not at a level to where I'm burning myself out like I did, but I woke up Monday not feeling great, and I kind of like took Monday off. I'm like, okay, the Batman came out Monday. I'm going to watch that. I was planning on watching it anyway for a review. And it's like, and I'm going to rank all my Batman movies. So I'll just watch Batman movies on Monday, right? And then I'll start, because I got this new schedule, right? And I was like, I'll push my Monday stuff to Tuesday. Wednesdays, I'm not really doing much anyway. So Wednesday will be, I just kind of push the schedule down, which is fine. That worked out. But what happened Tuesday is that it's weird. It's been forever, and it used to happen a lot more, especially my last relationship, dealing with a lot of trauma with the relationship before that, and then just how I am in general, but mixed with like this big up and down, working at a job that I really hated. It's just a lot of factors. The frequency of fluctuation was at a very much higher frequency back then, where now it's kind of leveled out, and then every once in a while I'll get like these big ups and downs, and things will get kind of like spiral out of control like it did on Tuesday. On Tuesday I woke up, and it was a fine day. I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing these things, start editing the clips from the show, and then I just wasn't feeling it, and then got on social media and like had two interactions that weren't like big interactions or whatever, but two interactions that both went a specific direction, and it just caused the spiral of like that feeling that I haven't had in a long time, but it's such a common feeling when I do like get just severe depression, where I get this like immense feeling that I'm just unwanted and a burden. Like I'm just a burden on everybody, which is probably another reason why I like to keep my distance from people, because I don't want to have that feeling that I'm a burden. Probably why I'm not good in relationships, because I have these severe depression that I've never dealt with. But that feeling, which I haven't felt in, I mean, it comes and goes, but it's probably been like a year maybe. It's a feeling that it used to be super common. Like it used to be my life. Like so much of like, I would say like the majority of my life in middle school was like that feeling 1,000%. Like every day, that feeling of just like, what the fuck? I hate life. Why am I here? Nobody wants me here. Like, I do not feel welcome anywhere. I don't fit in anywhere. People don't seem to be happy I'm around. The only time I had good feelings in middle school was when I was playing basketball with my friends. That it was like the only time we could like hang out, because we were in different classes and we lived in different parts of town, so we couldn't like, that was our only time where we could like be away. It was the only time I felt like I fit in anywhere, was with these friends playing basketball. And that feeling doesn't come as often. I think once I got out of school, I think, middle school was probably the worst, but then I still felt it throughout my life. Comes and goes. But on Tuesday, I was feeling it hard. And maybe also it's because there's a person that died recently that kind of, maybe that part of that sunk in a little bit as well. But it was rough. Tuesday was a rough day. A very, very, very rough day. And, man, like you want to talk about just... because my brain just is gone. Just like contemplating, just quitting everything. Stopping the show. I mean, first was just like, oh, I'll just stop doing the show. I'm just going to focus on my art. And then it's like, well, then it's like, well, why even do that? It's just like, what, like, just go and just travel or what, I don't know. But I thought all of the thoughts on Tuesday, and none of them were good. And I couldn't focus on anything, could not focus on anything. So I didn't really watch much. I was excited for 420, so I was kind of hoping to just erase Tuesday. Like, Tuesday was done for, and Wednesday was 420. And I love 420 because obviously weed is great. I didn't start smoking weed till my 30s. I'm 41 right now, so I've only smoked as an adult. I've only ordered from menus. I've never had a dealer. I've been very privileged in that way, starting as late as I did. And I'm not a big fan of the 420 culture. I don't have the tie-dye stuff. I'm not like the typical. Some people view me as like a stoner, quote unquote, but to people that actually smoke weed, I am far from that. And part of it is, just I don't have clothes with pot leaves on them, except for the shirt that I designed when I started smoking weed. Has a giant pot leaf in the background, which you could buy over at inspireddisorder.com. But I love 420 because it doesn't have any baggage. There's no religious baggage. There's no, you can do whatever you want, and it's like my ideal 420, how I like to celebrate 420 is obviously getting high. I don't have to get super blasted high, but whatever level of high I feel like getting that day. If I want to do high dose edible and go crazy, then if that's what I'm feeling, that's what I'll do. If I just feel like vaping here and there, whatever, smoke a joint, whatever it is, no pressure. That's the whole day, no pressure. Calm. I am the dude. I am channeling the dude. In fact, part of it, getting high, eating junk food, right? Whatever bad food I feel like eating, that is guilt-free day. Guilt-free day. Junk food. The sweets I want, the junk food like fast food or pizza, whatever it is, no rules. And then obviously watching movies, because I love watching movies. I've probably watched The Big Lebowski multiple times on 420. This year, I watched Russian Doll Season 2, which is a great show to watch high. And even that, I couldn't focus. I definitely wasn't in the downward spiral that I was Tuesday. Wednesday, I was out of it. I still couldn't focus on anything, but I didn't have that feeling of I am a burden on reality. I'm unwanted burden. I didn't have that feeling. Not that anybody in my life makes me feel that way. It's just I have problems. So I didn't have that, but I still was out of it. Enjoyed the show. Kind of wish I had paid better attention while watching the show because it is a crazy show, but there's so many awesome themes. I still enjoyed talking about it on the review, but it was definitely, so I watched that and I ate White Castle. I love those freezer White Castle. I've been watching Impractical Jokers also in the background now that I'm done with ER. And so White Castle shows up in that. And, it's Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. White Castle is tied to weed in a lot of ways. And I enjoy it. I think it's good. I've never been to a White Castle, but the freezer burgers you get, when you microwave them, they turn out pretty good. They're just perfect, soft little sliders that are so good. So that was primarily my 420, which was a nice recovery day. I mean, as far as I was concerned, all of the extra stuff, I did nothing extra. I got the bare minimum. It was a bare bones week. It was like an old school week where I didn't go by my new schedule at all. I got the bare minimum done. It took a lot longer than I thought. But by the time Thursday came around, I was definitely feeling better. I've been meditating before I paint on Thursdays, and then I've been meditating before I record on Sundays. So I've been meditating twice a week. I started that actually before the meltdown. So, you know, I don't know. I wouldn't say it caused the meltdown, but thankfully I started meditating again, at least twice a week. And it's good times to meditate, to like get focused before I record, or to just focus before I paint. So I think it's the best place for me to insert it, to just try and add it to my routine, because I haven't been doing the working out. That part of my routine hasn't stuck yet, but you know, it's I got a lot I'm working on, and I'm trying to do all of these things before I run out of money and need to. That's going to be a rough. That's a moment that I've almost run into multiple times in the past few years. Where I just almost lose it all. And somehow I'm still going. It is insane. So anyway, been doing all that. I also had an insane dream. I think it was probably Friday night, maybe. I had this crazy dream. And I have very similar dreams where it's like I'll be in I'll dream that I'm moving into a like giant house, or a room in a giant house, or I'm moving to a different room in a giant house. And this one was in some ways a dream come true, but it was a dream. It's like a giant warehouse that, not this part isn't part of my dream, but it was a giant warehouse that was attached to almost like a theme park in a way. Like not like a Six Flags type of a theme park, but like, you know, like they have like almost like the parts of a fair that aren't rides, right? So you have different types of shops, like an Old West themey type of a thing. I don't know. I don't really know what the theme park was, but that's what it seemed like the other structures were, because I went on a big tour around this place. I'm like, how do I afford this place? It's like I kept asking the guy questions who was showing me around, like trying to figure out why it is I could afford it, because I couldn't believe it in this dream. And it's like, so it's weird how many times I've had this dream where it's like in my dream, I can afford to live in like a nice place, but like the fact that I can afford it, the fact that I can afford anything in my dreams is such an amazing feeling. But this place, because I've always wanted to live in just like, I would love to live in a warehouse, just a giant open space where I can do my one thing over here, another thing over here, you know, maybe build a house inside of the warehouse, you know, have a hangout place on top of the warehouse if you need to go outside. But then like everything is controlled inside. Amazing. I would love that so much. You have no idea. Have a basketball court, have like a go-kart track, I don't know, a movie theater area. Like if you've ever seen Better Call Saul, it's like there's a scene where they're doing a bunch of construction to build this meth lab, and secretly they're doing it. So they hire all the people they hire from overseas, and they have this giant warehouse, and they built 2 houses inside of the warehouse, and then outside, because these guys were going to be living there for years, but they couldn't go outside. They couldn't like be seen anywhere because they're doing everything in secrecy. And they have these 2 houses, and they have a basketball court, they have a bar, pool table, movie theater, all this kind of stuff. And that's like that would be a dream. It would be a dream. Or have the house and then it extends up to the roof, so you, like maybe an elevator, so part of the house is like there's a floor on top of the warehouse. That would be badass. But that's what this dream was. But then it like turned into, as I'm on this tour, turned into basically a Call of Duty gunfight. Like, I don't know, like a cartel or something invaded this place, and all of a sudden my tour guide and I are killing people, or shooting at people anyway. And it's similar to what happens when I play Call of Duty on my phone, is like, you know, if you're running around and then all of a sudden you get shot, it'll, you know, you'll see that you got shot and it'll show you the direction. And then once you see them, especially if you're in close, like you're just trying to like move around like a crazy person while also trying to shoot them. And which is not like realistic in any way what you would do if you're in a gunfight. But when you're playing the video game, that's how I was moving in this dream as a human being, and it was ridiculous. And that's when I knew it was a dream, and then I woke up. But I've been having this dream. So it's like, this dream is fucking me up too. Because, like, this needs to be a reality. Like, I would love, I don't know if I would move, I don't know if I would buy a house, but if I had the money, if I could afford to buy a house, that's like, at least I know I have that financial security to where it's like, I could breathe, like it's so, like the air you breathe when you're not financially stable versus when you are financially stable is a completely different quality of breath altogether. And maybe I dream of that just so I don't die in my sleep, so I can breathe clearly. But it's a great feeling. Tuesday was not a good feeling. Spiraling out is not good, and I like saw it coming. It's like it was slow motion. I'm crossing the street and I'm seeing the bus approach to slam into me, and it's like in slow motion going like, oh no, I'm gonna spiral out right now. And it's like, if I keep doing this, but I can't stop, so why do I exist? So anyway, I hope everybody else had a good 420. Hope everybody's having a good week. And I'm doing a lot better, people. And it's like, I know these, it's like, it's a journey, man. And I'm just trying to enjoy the ride. So hope everybody else is enjoying their ride.